July 1985 fire season in the northern Rocky Mountains did not come as a complete surprise to veteran observers of fire seasons. Every sixth year in the northern region since 1961 has been characterized by extremely high levels of fire behavior. In 1985 was no exception. This fire season challenged our ability to not only put fires out, but to also implement the full range of latitude embodied in the revised fire policy. Also during the same period of time, a prescribed fire started by lightning was being managed in the Bob Marshall Wilderness in western Montana. The challenge was a difficult one due to the dry conditions being experienced in the northern region. Prolonged drought, very high temperatures, low humidities, and critically low fuel moistures set the stage for crown fires to burn at almost any time of the day or night. The high level of fire activity in the region throughout the month of July raised several issues and concerns regarding public safety, the effect of smoke on air quality, and the need for fire restrictions. One question was asked about why we were not putting out all of the fires. At the other end of the spectrum, some people were asking why were we putting out any fires in wilderness. People also were not entirely clear on the wildfire strategies of control, contain, and confine. And some additional questions were raised about why the Charlotte Peak prescribed fire was permitted to burn in such a dry year. It's important that we consider the evolution of prescribed fire and wildfire policies in the Forest Service since 1935. From 1935 to 1978, the Forest Service followed a very specific fire control policy that stated that each new wildfire be controlled by 10 a.m. the next morning. In 1978, a revised fire management policy was adopted that provided new latitude to be more cost-effective in making fire suppression decisions. This revised policy in 1978 introduced a spectrum of suppression responses for wildfires that included control, contain, and confine strategies based on on-the-ground conditions. Forest Service fire management policy also recognizes two types of prescribed fires: those ignited by Forest Service personnel and those, like Charlotte Peak, that are ignited by lightning. Actual case examples of fires that occurred in the northern region in 1985 will be used to illustrate the full range of fire management decisions that occurred. The first example is the SANDPOINT fire that occurred near White Sulphur Springs, Montana on the Lewis and Clark National Forest. This particular fire, because of its threat to natural resources, was immediately put in a control strategy. This means that a Class 1 overhead team was ordered and crews and equipment were ordered to put this fire completely out as quickly as possible. Contrast that approach with the big flat fire that occurred in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness on the Powell District of the Clearwater National Forest. At the time this lightning fire occurred, there were no suppression resources available like smoke jumpers or heli-tac crews to immediately send to this fire because those resources were committed elsewhere. Although this fire occurred in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness, it was out of prescription to be handled as a prescribed fire due to adverse problems with smoke production, high danger rating indexes, and the fact that all of our suppression resources were committed elsewhere. The fire was handled as a wildfire but it was put in a contained status. This means that intermittently, as suppression forces were available, they were committed to this fire to take advantage of natural barriers, build some fire line, and contain the fire to a predetermined area. This fire was never put totally out like the SANDPOINT fire was on the Lewis and Clark National Forest. And then the third level of suppression response available today is the CONFINE strategy that was applied to the Little Dead Elk fire that again started by lightning on the Moose Creek district of the Nez Perce National Forest. Again, this fire was in the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness, but the approved plan to allow some lightning fires to burn under prescription had been exceeded, again due to smoke production and danger rating indices. This fire was put in a confinement strategy. This means that to this date, no firefighter has lifted a Pulaski on the Little Dead Elk fire. Because of the remoteness of this fire in the Selway Bitterroot, it posed no threat to life, property, or natural resources outside wilderness, and has been burning without suppression actions, but in a confined strategy. The next type of fire that we'll illustrate is the Charlotte Peak prescribed fire that was permitted to burn in the Bob Marshall Wilderness according to a prescribed fire plan approved by the regional forester in 1983. Unlike the Selway Bitterroot Wilderness fires, the Charlotte Peak fire met all prescription criteria to burn as a prescribed fire to meet wilderness management objectives of perpetuating natural ecosystems. The Charlotte Peak prescribed fire was started in a lightning storm on June 28th. It was detected on June 29th. The analysis team recommended to the forest supervisor to permit Charlotte Peak fire to burn towards the evening of June 29th as a prescribed fire. This is the kind of summer with prolonged dry conditions that the Bob Marshall ecosystems have been so significantly affected by over the past thousands of years. The Charlotte Peak fire burned throughout the entire month of July as a prescribed fire, remaining totally in prescriptions, meeting wilderness resource management objectives, and reaching a size of 5,000 acres by the end of July. In conclusion, the question must be asked, were the policy applications and fire management decisions and actions successful in the northern region in 1985? The answer to that question appears to be yes. The firefighters on the line in July attacked and put out those fires under extremely dry conditions with little help from Mother Nature. Day after day through the month of July, conditions were characterized by temperatures in the 90s to 100 degrees, no cloud cover, very low relative humidities, and critically low fuel moistures. And yet the suppression efforts were successful. Even the Hellgate Canyon fire that burned 1,450 acres at the very edge of Missoula did not burn a single home. The ranks of fire crews, hotshot crews, and smoke jumpers were swelled by the addition of Forest Service regular crews from all over the United States and fire crews from other federal, state, and local agencies. These firefighters were supported by the latest products of forest fire research and advanced technologies. These products included such things as remote automatic weather stations, a lightning detection system, infrared imagery that was able to map fires and detect new fires even at night, a behaved computer program that modeled fire behavior, the National Fire Danger Rating System, and excellent meteorological support from the National Weather Service. While the fire teams, fire crews, and advanced technologies were earning much-deserved headlines, some other actions were proceeding quietly behind the scenes. Fire management personnel were routinely going about their business of applying the full range of policy decisions on emerging fires. Thus, some wildfires were placed in a contain or a confine status to conserve scarce suppression resources and be more cost-effective. And personnel on the Flathead National Forest were effectively managing the Charlotte Peak prescribed fire that burned 5,000 acres over this very same dry period. Looking at July 1985, in retrospect, the Forest Service did make the transition from the old 10 a.m. fire control policy to the new revised policy that allows us new latitude in making suppression decisions. July in the northern region truly was a time for Pulaskis and prescriptions.